seated. Chief Justice Melton, Provost Hu, distinguished guests, graduates, colleagues, parents, family, and friends, good morning. My name is Beau Rutledge, and I have the distinct honor of serving as the Dean of the Law School. I'm pleased to welcome each of you here today to celebrate the University of Georgia School of Law, Class of 2021. Members of the Class of 2021, congratulations on a job well done and done together. That may sound like the perfunctory remark that deans are supposed to make at the start of these ceremonies, but it is especially fitting for this year and for your class, especially the word together. Whether you've just completed a one-year master's or a three-year Juris Doctor, none of us gathered here today can take for granted this occasion to celebrate together. 3 years ago, when many of you arrived for your 1L year, filled with dreams of this day, the term COVID-19 was not even in our lexicon. It certainly wasn't in mine. And yet a mere 12 months ago, we were all walking through the fog of this great global pandemic together. We feared the unknown together. We adapted to new ways of learning and working together. We suffered and mourned in isolation. We consoled and supported each other together, but by Zoom. We could not hug, we could not shake hands, we could not meet each other for the proverbial drink without fear that our human interaction would somehow become a weapon. And yet, we endured. You endured. And now here you are, together. Members of the Class of 2021, you not only endured together, you persisted together, you grew together, you led together, you made a difference together. I hope all of you will join me in reflecting on some of the achievements of this incredible group of graduates. When the nation's courts declared judicial emergencies, some of you in the Jane W. Wilson Family Justice Clinic continued to appear in live court on behalf of victims of domestic violence because you understood that orders to shelter in place provided no sanctuary for the abused in our society. When the nation's employers migrated to remote work, one of you continued to report to the Centers for Disease Control because you understood that you were needed to help develop the guidance to help us get through this pandemic. Devin, Sarah, you and others argued in Georgia Supreme Court or the federal appellate courts where you made path-breaking, precedent-setting victories. Jason, Andre, you ensured that the trophy in the annual Georgia-Florida Moot Court remained where it belonged, here in Athens. Alexa and Matt, it is no exaggeration to say that you got us to where we are today. Through your leadership and the leadership of your SBA President, Lillian, you were a constant source of counsel and support during lonely moments. And leaders of the law school Democrats and the law school Republicans, when your fellow citizens had to figure out how to exercise the most sacred right in our republic, you jointly undertook a voter registration drive together. In short, all of you maintained the daily grind of learning, work, and preparation demanded of you as students, and soon to be demanded of you as lawyers and professionals in our society. You did this in socially distanced study groups, in hybrid review sessions, and yes, in some Zoom happy hours. but you did it together. Now, while this pandemic may have driven us physically apart for a period of time, it also created bonds. Bonds that will define your class, bonds that will define your generation, bonds that will stick and strengthen long after this pandemic joins the last one in the annals of history. My encouragement to you, nurture those bonds, invest in them. Our society, your society, needs you to be bonded together. Those bonds will help you discharge the duties you are about to undertake, whether as lawyers or professionals, whether it's resolving disputes among your fellow citizens, building businesses and communities, shaping the public policies that will define your world. Those bonds will help you find common ground, but those bonds will also serve you, perhaps even more importantly so, when you passionately disagree. That ability to remain bonded together through your shared experiences, even in the face of profound disagreement, was evident in the warm friendship between two individuals, the late Justices Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Antonin Scalia. They disagreed, often profoundly, over some of the most fundamental issues in our society. And yet, even when they were on opposite sides of a hotly contested case, they were known to share drafts of each other's opinions with each other before circulating them to their colleagues at the court. Here are Justice Ginsburg's words to describe those exchanges, quote, "Whenever I wrote for the court and received a Scalia dissent, my majority opinion was notably better than my initial draft. Justice Scalia honed in on the soft spots and gave me just what I needed to strengthen my decision," close quote. Yet, however far apart their opinions might have been, their friendship never grew distant. In the summer of 1999, not long after a sitting of court, Justice Ginsburg was on the island of Crete, teaching a summer school class at the recommendation of her colleague, Justice Scalia, when she suddenly had to be hospitalized for what proved to be the beginning of a long and painful bout of cancer. The very first outside call that she received while sitting in that unfamiliar hospital bed was from her friend Nino, who said, quote, "Ruth, I'm responsible for those days in Crete, so you must get well. Is there anything I can do to help?" No doubt there will be moments when disagreements will test the bonds between you. When they do, look on these bonds as a source of strength, not something to be broken or rended easily. If one of you is suffering, ask, "Is there anything I can do to help?" And when any of you need help, please know that the 125 hardworking faculty and staff who have accompanied you on your respective journeys through the fog of the last 14 months will always be here for you, together. So too will the family, friends, children, spouses, fiancés, loved ones, some of whom have traveled great distances to see you cross this stage today. So take a minute, each of you, and find them in the audience. Look around, go look for them. And share a moment together. And now that you've found them, if I could ask everyone in the audience to please rise. And members of the class of 2021, I would ask you to join me in thanking them for being here with you together. You can be seated. We cannot take this day for granted. I don't take this day for granted. And with our hearts full, let me introduce somebody who's not only led your class, but joined me in helping guide the school not only through this pandemic, but to this moment, because I'll tell you this, you do not get to a day like today without people like Alexa and Matt, who have been the source of advice and help and leaders. It's my pleasure to introduce Matt Caudill, a Gainesville, Georgia native and a graduate of the University of Georgia. At law school, he was an editor of the Journal of International Comparative Law, served in the Jane W. Wilson Family Justice Clinic, and for those of you in the audience who don't know it, was not only president of the 1L class, not only president of the 2L class, but president of the 3L class. Following graduation, Matt plans to start his legal career as an associate with the firm in Gainesville. Please join me in giving a warm, rousing bulldog welcome to your class president, Matt Caudill.
Thank you, Dean Rutledge, for that kind introduction. Behind me sit many of our country's most prominent legal scholars and practitioners, multiple former Supreme Court clerks, and the 33rd Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Georgia. And yet, for some reason, you're listening to me speak. As I prepared my remarks for today, I thought about what purpose having a student speaker serves. I can't provide any advice about how to have a meaningful career because mine hasn't begun yet. I can't offer any insight into the benefits of being a UGA Law alumni because I am not yet, at least for the next hour or so, a UGA Law alumni. What I can do, however, is discuss what the last 3 years have looked like for us, the class of 2021. Spoiler alert, it was really easy. No one was ever stressed and we had lots of free time. This didn't require a lot of effort on anyone's part here. But before I offer any accurate commentary on what the last 3 years looked like for us, there are a few important groups of people I'd like to thank. First, I'd like to thank the faculty of Georgia Law. Your guidance is a large part of the reason that we're sitting here today. The empathy and support shown by so many of our professors during the pandemic and our transition to virtual learning is something we do not take for granted. I'd also like to thank the law school staff for their efforts. In particular, I'd like to thank Dr. Casey Graham, the Director of Student Affairs, who I truly believe is invaluable to this institution and the success of its students. And last, but certainly not least, I'd like to thank our friends and families, many of whom are here today, for the support and encouragement you've given us. We graduate from law school today because of you. I'd like to take just a few moments to reflect on the past 3 years. Many members of the audience today may not know, but there's a phrase that's commonly used by lawyers and law students alike to describe the law school experience. 1L, they scare you to death. 2L, they work you to death. 3L, they bore you to death. So now, I'd like to invite the class of 2021 to join me on a very brief trip down memory lane as we evaluate the accuracy of that expression. Let's start at the beginning. 1L, they scare you to death. I think that's 100% accurate. I have very little to offer on that. They do scare you to death. We can all recall the first day of law school. I'll always remember sitting in Professor Elizabeth Weeks' torts class on that first day. Professor Weeks walked into the classroom, immediately started discussing the readings, and I witnessed the very first cold call I had ever seen. For the members of the audience who aren't familiar with a cold calling is a law school teaching technique where professors randomly call on students to answer questions about the day's readings. It's based on the Socratic method, which originated in ancient Greece and has been terrorizing students ever since. I'll never forget watching Professor Weeks as she scanned the list of names at her podium. Mr. Harbin. Is Mr. Harbin here? You're not going to like this next part. Never in my life have I been so thankful not to be a member of the Harbin family. Marshall Harbin, who I didn't know at the time, but would quickly become one of my best friends, calmly answered Professor Weeks' question while I began considering what career alternatives I had with a bachelor's degree in political science. As our first day of law school progressed, some of us went to legal writing classes, others went to contracts, and many of us ended the day with civil procedure. It was that afternoon in civil procedure where Professor Lonnie Brown, who by the way is sitting directly in front of the platform, gave me my first ever cold call. As many of the graduates know, Professor Brown is great with names. From day one, he knew all of our names and did not hesitate to look directly at me as he said, "Plaintiff contends his affidavit and the provided interrogatory answers establish grounds for personal jurisdiction." "What is an interrogatory, Mr. Caudill?" I effectively blacked out at that point. I cannot tell you what I said during that cold call, but I can tell you all today with 100% certainty that I did not know the answer to his question. The second semester of our first year was easier. We learned what to expect. We'd taken some exams, and we were more accustomed to the rigor that our classes required of us. So, 1L, they scare you to death. That's true, I think. I don't know that any of us enjoyed our 1L year, but I'm confident that we can all recognize it wasn't all bad. During our 1L year, we made lifelong friends. We met so many new people. There were plenty of fun experiences that made the stress manageable. For every open memo, there was a tailgate. For every appellate brief, a barrister's ball. After using 1L to adapt to law school, we began our 2L year. 2L, they work you to death. 2L is fun because the classes are just as hard, you have just as much reading every night, but many of us also joined one of the school's 3 legal journals. Other 2Ls participated in the school's renowned advocacy programs. So on top of our regular classwork, we participated in externships with state and federal judges. We completed site checks and wrote student notes for journals, wrote briefs and were benched by professors for advocacy teams, and began interviewing for summer jobs as early as August. Others of us enrolled in one of the school's 18 different clinical and experiential learning offerings. It was hard work, to be sure, but by the end of 2019, we'd somehow made it through 1/2 of law school. We began the second semester of our 2L year in the spring, and then in March, the COVID-19 pandemic began. None of us realized when we left for spring break that law school, as we had come to know it, was over. The remainder of our 2L year was entirely virtual, and all social activities were canceled. Suddenly, we were participating in clinics, externships, journals, advocacy teams, and our classes, all from behind a computer screen. It was a massive adjustment for many of us, and 2L became even more work than we'd anticipated. Yet, we successfully made the adjustment and began our 3L year uncertain of what it would look like and if we would even be able to have this graduation ceremony today. So, finally, we arrive at 3L. They bore you to death. 3L was many things, but boring was not one. Many of us still had virtual classes this year, and it wasn't until only a few months ago that we were all permitted to gather together to celebrate the countdown to graduation. We continued taking classes, our work on journals and advocacy teams, and worked to secure post-graduation employment. As vaccines became available, we saw a gradual return to normal and learned in our final semester that we would have a graduation and could walk across this stage in front of our friends and families to receive the degree we worked so hard for. And today, here we are, in these hot and incredibly uncomfortable gowns, preparing to join a profession that just 3 years ago seemed so far away. I know that our class will go on to do great things. Many of you will become judges, prosecutors, and public defenders. Others of you will become legislators and government actors. It's my sincere hope that the political and social change we've observed and been a part of as law students will make us more compassionate and more empathetic attorneys. I'm hopeful that we'll use our experiences in Athens to continue the effort to purge our profession of racial and gender biases and make the law more inclusive, fair, and equitable. I am immensely proud to have attended the University of Georgia School of Law and to join its impressive alumni network. And now it's my distinct honor to introduce the Alumni Board President. Matt Loudermilk is the Vice President and Corporate Secretary of AFLAC Incorporated. Matt joined AFLAC in its legal division in 2001 and was appointed Assistant Corporate Secretary in 2005, became a second president in 2006, and was promoted to his current position in 2013. As Corporate Secretary, Matt serves as the coordinating focal point for communication with and between the Board of Directors, the CEO, and senior leadership. His responsibilities include serving as the primary corporate authority on relevant regulatory requirements pertaining to board activities, listing rules requirements associated with shareholder matters, and other initiatives relevant to corporate governance. Prior to joining AFLAC, Matt was in private practice at a law firm in Columbus, Georgia. Matt received his bachelor's degree in business administration from the University of Georgia Terry College of Business with an emphasis in economics, and his Juris Doctor degree from the University of Georgia School of Law. He is a member of the State Bar of Georgia, the Columbus Bar Association, and the Society for Corporate Governance. He previously served on the boards of directors of the Greater Columbus, Georgia Chamber of Commerce and United Way of the Chattahoochee Valley. He currently serves on the board of directors of Easter Seals, West Georgia, and on the University of Georgia's Law School Association Council. Please join me in welcoming Matt Loudermilk.
Thank you, Matt, for that introduction. Good morning, my fellow law dogs. I am honored to have the privilege of addressing you this morning, the class of 2021, on behalf of the University of Georgia School of Law Alumni Council. It's great to be here in Athens and holding this ceremony in person. Hopefully this is a good sign that we're returning to some sense of normalcy. As this marks the 21st anniversary of my graduation from our law school, I cannot help but think back on my experience. While finishing up my degree at UGA's Terry College of Business, I was contemplating my next steps. In doing so, I sought the advice, as many of you probably did, of your parents about applying to law school. So I asked my father about it. And being the ever-compliant son that I am, I completely ignored his advice and decided to go to law school anyway. I did, though, follow through on one recommendation that he made to me. He told me to watch the movie The Paper Chase. For those of you who may not be familiar with it, The Paper Chase is the 1973 film based on the 1971 novel by John J. Osborne Jr. In the film, it tells the story of James Hart, a first year at Harvard Law. In the movie, John Houseman gives an Oscar-winning performance as Professor Charles W. Kingsfield Jr. He has many memorable scenes, but in one scene he's addressing his class and describes the Socratic method, as alluded to earlier. He goes on to say, and I quote in part, "The study of law is something new and unfamiliar to most of you, unlike any schooling you have ever known before. Questions and answers, questions and answers. You come in here with a skull full of mush, and you leave thinking like a lawyer." Hopefully for you, the depiction of the 1L experience in the movie was exaggerated, but as testified by Mr. Caudill, there are certainly elements of truth to it. As it turns out, in the fall of 1997, I found myself sitting in a classroom listening to a professor teach me civil procedure who had taught my father 22 years before. Yes, my dad, despite his advice to me, is a proud graduate of our law school as well. The academic challenge that I, and likely you, face was unlike anything that I had ever experienced before, and I didn't have to do it during a pandemic. Law school does train our minds and teaches us critical thinking, but we ourselves must continue to train our hearts. Our minds may have been mush, but we must not let our hearts become stones. Through our shared experiences, we have built bonds with our fellow law dogs. And despite the occasional dream that I have where I find I'm missing an exam in a course that I didn't even realize I was taking, or the random knot in my stomach that I still have when I pass by the law school, I am forever grateful for my experience. The mission of our law school is to prepare, connect, and lead. Your studies over the last 3 years have prepared you for your next chapter. Your law school experience has formed relationships that connect you with each other into a greater alumni network. You will leave here and lead in your chosen path. As a University of Georgia School of Law graduate, you are becoming part of an extremely successful, ever-expanding global network of alums who work in nearly every professional field. Our reach and influence touches so many lives and aspects in our communities. From pillars in the legal and business communities to those assisting individuals or mom and pop shops as they navigate through their legal environments. From partners at large law firms to solo practitioners. From professors and prosecutors and public defenders to political activists, governors, and representatives at local, state, and federal offices. From judges and justices to advocates and advisors. As you look ahead, I implore you to look back, but not only look back, to give back. Invest in your communities and in your law school to assist with preparing the generations coming up behind us. Continue to connect with our alma mater and lead by example with both your time and your financial support. Whether you're fully aware of it or not, you benefited from the programs that were provided from gifts from fellow alums. I ask that you join us in considering paying it forward to keep our law school ranked as the best value in the nation. Some of you have already taken the first step by contributing to your class legacy gift, and for that, I thank you. I started by referencing The Paper Chase. The film was followed by a TV series in which John Houseman reprised his role as Professor Kingsfield. In the opening credits, he revisited his famous quote. However, one small but crucial phrase was added. You come in here with a skull full of mush. And if you survive, you leave thinking like a lawyer. Well, you did survive. And I know that you will thrive. And in doing so, please remember to give back. So, with that, let me be the first to welcome you into the University of Georgia Law School Alumni Association. May God bless, and go Dogs.
Good morning. Thank you. Let me begin by offering congratulations to the University of Georgia School of Law class of 2021. Kudos to you all. Job well done. I'm Professor Andrea L. Dennis, and as Associate Dean for Faculty Development, it is my pleasure to speak briefly to you about and on behalf of my colleagues, the faculty of the law school. This is a remarkable group of legal professionals, educators, scholars, and thought leaders. They bring to the faculty years of practical experience from judicial clerkships, private firms, businesses, government agencies, and community agencies. Their outstanding classroom and experiential teaching is recognized through internal and external awards programs. Their research and clinical practice span a wide range of legal subjects, thoughtfully and impactfully addressing the most important issues confronting Georgia, the nation, and the world. It is an honor for me to be a member of this community. To the graduates, over the last 3 years, it has been our privilege to be your professors, to leverage our knowledge, skills, and abilities in service of your education, training, and professional development. Whether in a lecture hall, seminar room, clinic, office, hallway, or on Zoom, our mission has been to prepare each of you for your life's calling, whether or not it involves the practice of law. We have committed ourselves to helping you identify your individual paths, creating rich, supportive, and stimulating learning environments, and sharing our insights and experiences. Equally important, we have learned from you and with you, and shared in your professional and personal highs and lows. Now, battle-tested, resilient, and well-prepared, we have no doubt that the future is bright for each of you, and we are honored to include you among our graduates. Let me here invite my colleagues to stand, some of them seated here, some of them seated just in front of the graduates, some of them on stage. Class of 2021 and guests, please join me in recognizing the faculty of the University of Georgia School of Law and thanking them for their dedication and service to the law school and our graduates. Thank you. I now turn it over to Alexa Datto, one of our current graduates. We won't talk about where she completed her undergraduate and her master's degrees. We'll just focus on her time here. I have had the pleasure of working with Alexa in the classroom, as well as observing her commitment to and leadership in the law school community. She has been a winning member of our moot court team, outstanding editor on the Georgia Journal of International and Comparative Law, Dean's Ambassador, and finally, both 3L and 2L class vice president. Like all of our graduates, she has left her mark on the law school and undoubtedly will continue to do so beyond the walls of our building. Alexa?
Thank you, Professor Dennis. On July 1st, 2005, Harold D. Melton was appointed to the Georgia Supreme Court by Governor Sonny Perdue. He was sworn in as Chief Justice on September 4th, 2018 by former Chief Justice P. Harris Hines. Prior to joining the court, Chief Justice Melton served as executive counsel to Governor Perdue, representing the governor on legal issues covering the entire scope of state government. Chief Justice Melton helped safeguard Georgia's interests in water rights disputes with Alabama and Florida, and he actively participated in administration efforts to advance the delivery of criminal justice services in the state. Before serving as executive counsel, Chief Justice Melton spent 11 years in the Georgia Department of Law under two attorneys general, where he dealt with issues ranging from the creation of the Georgia Lottery Corporation to the administration of Georgia's tobacco settlement. Prior to leaving to join the governor's office, he served as section leader over the Consumer Interest Division. Chief Justice Melton received a Bachelor of Science degree from Auburn University and his Juris Doctor from the University of Georgia in 1991. He previously served as a volunteer leader of Young Life Ministries for 11 years, and he currently serves on a local Young Life board and on the national board. He is also a board member of Atlanta Youth Academies. A native of Washington, D.C., Chief Justice Melton grew up in East Point in Marietta, Georgia. He currently resides in Atlanta with his wife, Kimberly, and his 3 children. Please give a warm welcome to this year's commencement speaker, Chief Justice Harold Melton.
Thank you. I have to admit now I'm curious about where you did your undergrad, Alexa. Thank you for that introduction. Class of 2021, you're here. Congratulations. I sat where you sat 30 years ago, except it was outside in the heat. I see you fanning yourselves, but this is better. Dean Rutledge, thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your leadership of my fine institution that you have guided so ably. Thank you to the faculty and staff. And Mr. Caudill, thank you for your service to your fellow students. And congratulations to you all. I've been on the court for 16 years, 30 years with state government. In the course of that time, I've had the privilege of sharing various thoughts. This past February, I shared thoughts again in the context of Black History Month. And in doing so, it occurred to me that a lot of what I was thinking and sharing had a particular application to the current events and the state of affairs that exist in our communities and nation. And I want to share those thoughts with you and ask you to serve in a particular way that goes beyond your training as a lawyer. I'm not worried about your ability to go out and practice law. I'm not here to say anything in connection with that. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about a broader application. So if you allow me, I don't have a lot of time. I know you want to get through to the end. So let's get going. When we look at Black History Month, we can start anywhere. I always tend to focus on the premier personality, which is Dr. Martin Luther King. And when we talk about Dr. Martin Luther King, we have a tendency to reduce his overall message into a bumper sticker, a slogan, which is simply nonviolent social change. But we have to back up a little bit and understand the bigger picture, because it was much bigger than that. He was much bigger than that. The message was much bigger than that. And you have to remember that Dr. Martin Luther King was also a reverend. He was reverend. He was a reverend of the Christian faith. And regardless of your faith, the faith that he was professing and adhered to had at its basis the core elements of loving the Lord with all your heart and soul and mind, and loving your neighbor as yourself. And when love lived out well and done well, it's actually very attractive. The problem was that's not what was happening. What he saw when he looked out at his community, at his nation, he saw a people who were oppressed, a people who were suffering under oppression, who were told that you were second-rate citizens at best, you were not entitled to the dignity of a human, you could be subjected to abuse, and that was just okay. And so that did something to a percentage of our population, a percentage of our community. It created brokenness, it created anger, it created hurt, depression, frustration, all these types of things. So that was what he saw on one hand. And then what he saw on the other hand was a majority population that either was okay with seeing that happen or was actively engaged in that oppression. And the big picture was, if our goal as a nation was to have community where we loved our neighbor as ourselves, well, what we saw was far different from that. And what he saw impacted the soul of the oppressed and the oppressors. And so we were far from where we should be. So the goal of the civil rights movement, there were several goals. One was, yes, to obtain civil rights, to the ability to ride the bus, the ability to vote, the ability to have a job. That was one of the goals. But a big part of what he was trying to achieve was to heal the nation, to redeem the souls of everybody, white and black, for there to be healing, for there to be redemption. So not just to be able to sit at the counter and order a sandwich or ride MARTA, but for there to be healing. And we hear that when we look at the speech. We've heard the speech hundreds of times, but in 1963, in his I Have a Dream speech in Washington, D.C., he said, "I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners and the sons of former slaves will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. Sons of former slave owners and the sons of former slaves will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood." What is he talking about? He's talking about a healing where we actually sit down and we're at the table of brotherhood. And so if that's the goal, then how you pursue that goal, how you achieve that goal matters, and that's why nonviolent social change made sense. It was practical. Andy Young said, we're not going to get there by the alternative means. They've got more guns than we do. We can't fight our way towards civil rights. That wasn't going to work. But it was tactical in this way. Segregation was portrayed as something that was very quaint. It was very civil. We had order, and everybody was okay as long as you kind of abided by that sense of order. And it denied the ugliness that was underlying segregation. And so with nonviolent social change, The idea was just by doing ordinary things, just by sitting on a bus, just by ordering a sandwich at a lunch counter and watching the reaction, provoking the reaction, unleashing the ugliness that was embedded in segregation, just by doing these basic things, we can show just how ugly segregation is, and we would tweak the conscience of the nation. And so the consciousness of our nation was awoken, and the hearts of the nation was brought to life, and there's an urge to do better, there's an urge to be better. So that's the whole big picture of nonviolent social change. Have we done that? I would say yes. I will ask you to resist the temptation to say, no, we haven't done that. You have a seat at the table of brotherhood. I have a seat at the table of brotherhood. Don't insult Dr. Martin Luther King and John Lewis and Andy Young and these fine leaders, soldiers, and say that we have not achieved that. Can we do better? Yes. We were not where we were. Celebrate where we are. And it's important we do that because we have something to do at the table of brotherhood. So let's look at what happens at the table of brotherhood. You have brothers, sisters, you have family, you sit at the table. Do you like each other all the time? No. Do you like some of these people that we stood up and applauded all the time? No, but they're here with you and you're celebrating them with you. At the table of brotherhood, you hash it out. You have discussion. You agree, you disagree, but you understand deeper, but what you don't do is kick people out. That's what happens at the table of brotherhood. And our community tables are no different. We have access to our leaders. You have access to your leaders. When you graduate with a law degree from the University of Georgia, you have access to your community leaders wherever you go, by virtue of your training, by virtue of your title, by virtue of your stature in your community, by virtue of your ability to think and contribute to the conversation. You have access to your leaders. This is how things get done. That's what I want to impress upon you. This is how things get done. Whether it's legislative changes, rule changes, cultural changes, policy changes, how we do things differently, in whatever context you go, it's done because you actually take advantage of the opportunity to sit at the table of brotherhood. You don't have to march in Birmingham. You don't have to march on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. All you have to do now, sometimes, is just pick up the phone. Pick up the phone. P-U-T-P. Pick up the phone. Sometimes I put a D in there. Pick up the phone. It's important to do that. Look to have conversations. Look to explore possibilities. Look for solutions. So that's point one. Point two, and I only have two. Point two is also in that speech, Dr. King said this: with this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. Transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. So he was talking about what was going around at that time, and he described it as jangling discord. And we look out and say, gosh, everything that we have in front of us right now, everything we're seeing, it's much more than jangling discord. He really didn't understand what we were dealing with now. Really? Let's look at what he was dealing with now, at that time, what he called jangling discord. At the time he said this, his home had been bombed. Family home exploded up, bombed. He had been stabbed in the chest by a letter opener. He had been arrested 4 times. He had been punched and beaten. Shortly after his speech, there was the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church, where four kids were killed while attending Sunday school. There were additional riots throughout the nation, and President Kennedy was assassinated. So, in context, we understand that this was an understatement. It was a rhetorical flourish. He called that jangling discord. But in the midst of that, he still had hope of a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. He had hope because of his faith. He had hope, but also because of the consciousness of this nation and where our nation had been and where the nation had gone. And that's what is really important to hold on to at this time. There is a temptation to be overwhelmed. There's a temptation to be fearful. There's a temptation to be pessimistic. I don't want you to be discouraged as you look out and see what can be better and should be better. I need your optimism. We need your optimism. We've been here before. We've had moments in our nation's history where it looked bad. And each time we have grown to increase the freedoms to be the freest country in the world. Each time we have grown to be better than where we were before, and we've grown from the jangling discords. Look at the Civil War. Look at the women's suffrage movement. Look at the fight for humane working conditions. None of these accomplishments, none of these advancements came easy. They came with blood, they came with sweat, and they came with tears. But each time we got better. We got better. So while I don't want you to be discouraged, I also don't want you to be lazy, because it takes work. It takes people of sound mind and courage and mental discipline to get engaged. Here are a few tips that I need from you. First, don't be a jangler. I don't know if that's a word, but you're hearing it now. I don't need you to be out there jangling, creating discord. You're better than that. You've been trained to be better than that. Your law degree says no more jangling. Second, PUTP. We already know what that means. Pick up the phone. Number 3, get past the talking points. You can think at a different level. There are layers of these issues that we're addressing that require solutions. At the talking point level, we never get to solutions. At the pick up the phone level, at the table of brotherhood level, where we actually get to the details and we hear from one another, we can actually find solutions. You can tweet and you can march, but then you have to go the next step and actually get to work. And we're counting on you to do that. Number 4, we need linguistic precision. We need linguistic precision. We could talk about social justice, we could talk about systematic racism, but at some point, I need to know what you're talking about so we know where to lend our efforts. We need to know what levers to adjust. We need to know what policies that need to be fixed. And it's going to take linguistic precision to do that. You are trained, you have the hearts and minds to do so. I will give you a word of encouragement also in that there are enough people of goodwill to where you don't have to feel like you're out there alone. Many people just need a nudge, and they're eager to do more and to do better. Many people just need a vision of where they can help. I'm hoping that you could be a part of that discussion. I'm hoping that you can be part of the team and help build the team that says, hey, let's go do this and do this better. I'm optimistic. I am optimistic that the jangling discords in our country and in our world are a precursor for even better down the road. I look at our history. I look at a time that we now romanticize in musicals, where the Vice President of the United States actually killed a constitutional founder, Alexander Hamilton. I look at World War I, I look at World War II, and we've always gotten better. Getting to the next level requires the kind of soul searching that only comes through adversity. It means striving to live up to the values that we hold dear and examining and getting back to those core values and seeing how they could really be real and truthful and meaningful in a tangible way. It means giving grace to one another as we sit at the table, because we're not going to say things the right way. We're not even going to think things that we will believe later on. We're going to grow in our evolution and the depth of our understanding, so it means giving grace to one another as we actually sit at the table. But the one thing we can't do is undervalue the table. I need you there. We need you there. And as you sit there, may God bless you and your families. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Justice Melton. You've been a great leader for the Georgia judiciary, and particularly in the past year when we've had to re-envision the entire process of litigation. We're going to miss you. I am Randy Beck, Associate Dean for Academic Affairs, and I have the distinct pleasure of introducing the individuals who will read the names of our graduating students. Dr. Laura Tate Caudill, the Associate Director of our Dean Rusk Center for International Law, will read the names of those earning the Master of Laws degree. The names of our students earning the Master in the Study of Law degree and the Juris Doctor degree will be read by 4 professors selected as faculty marshals by our graduates. Professor Kent Barnett is our J. Alton Hosch Associate Professor of Law, though newly promoted to full professor, and he will soon be our Associate Dean for Academic Affairs. I can't wait. Professor Lonnie T. Brown, Jr. is the A. Gus Cleveland Distinguished Chair of Legal Ethics and Professionalism and a Josiah Meigs Distinguished Teaching Professor. Professor Nathan S. Chapman is the Pope F. Brock Associate Professor in Professional Responsibility. He also has a pending promotion to full professor. And Dean Andrea L. Dennis is our Associate Dean for Faculty Development and the John Bird Martin Chair of Law. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Beck, and thank you for 3 years of selfless service in the Associate Dean's office and for keeping me out of prison more than once. Members of the class of 2021, it's time for the big moment. Well, this marks the end of your legal studies. This also marks a moment of history, for it will be the first time that our provost, Dr. S. Jack Hu, will confer degrees personally on law students. Provost Hu, thank you for being here today. And on behalf of the faculty of the University of Georgia School of Law, I am pleased to introduce our candidates for the degrees Master in the Study of Law, Master of Law, and Juris Doctor. Will the candidates please rise?
Wow, good morning, everyone. Members of the class of 2021, today marks the successful completion of your studies at the University of Georgia. I congratulate you all on this significant milestone achievement and hope that you will stay connected with the faculty and friends who have supported you during your journey. You are earning a degree from one of the nation's leading public law schools. I encourage you to use your knowledge and talent for the benefit of individuals, communities, and society as a whole. So it is my honor to officially confer the degrees that you have worked so hard for. By the authority granted to me by the President of the University of Georgia and the Board of Regents of the University System of Georgia, I now confer you the degrees Master in the Study of Law, Master of Law, or Juris Doctor, with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities thereto are pertaining. Congratulations. Thank you.
Okay, so you may be seated, and here's what's going to happen. So for those of you in the first row only, if you would follow the directions of the row marshals. As your name is called, please cross the stage to accept congratulations from myself, from Provost Tu, and from Chief Justice Melton. Will the candidates in the first row please follow the marshals? And as we complete that row, the row behind them can follow them.
Ina Chacha. Anita A. Emakpare. Anna Glickman. Xiyang Liu. Youngju Nam. Maximilian H. Ulschläger. Stella E. Osibor. Tope M. Oomoyela. Ashish K. Sharma. Dilanor Tunch. Giselle Vasconcelos.
For the candidates in the Master in the Study of Law, Carrie Elizabeth Betts. David Rodriguez. Adeola Shokundi. The candidates for the Juris Doctor. Janae Simone Alexander. Jared Robbins Allen. Raneem Ashrawi. Eddie Atala. Sarah Ann P. Atkinson. Tiffany Priscilla Au. Gamble M. Baffert. Kristen Elaine Bartlett. Shelby J. Benzinger. James C. Berrigan. Christopher J. Bertrand. Mary Catherine Blackwell. Lucas V. Boggs. Jacob R. Boone. Gregory T. Boyd. Samuel Burton Brewer. Ashton Bricker. Chandler Brooks. Madison Lee Burdick. Helen Elizabeth Berge. Taylor Samantha Bussey. Stephanie L. Caldwell. Grace Brenna Callanan. Victoria A. Carballo. Bailey J. Carter. Matthew B. Caudill. Grant D. Cole. Madison Conkle. Kaylin G. Coots. Justin M. Crawford. Alexander S. Cumming. Grace Amariah Curtis. Alexis K. Danicky. Alexa L. Datto. Grayson T. Davis. Hillary A. Davis. Mary Frances Dennis. Emily Anderson Dumar. Michelle Dudley. Abby Jo Due. Tyler Dysart. Mary R. Aiken. Justin D. Edge. Alexander S. Edmonds. Edward Mitchell Eitzen. Brianna Chanel Eubanks. Allison L. Evans. Neka Ifeanwa Nkechi Awulanu.
Tyler D. Fabry. Linda Fan. Lillian Gower Fant. Connor Harris Fields. Molly Michelle Fierro. Madison Page Finley. Paul C. Flood. Joshua C. Fowler. Charles Jacob Fusatola. Mitchell Fusatola. John M. Gadient. Tyler Marquis Gaines. Lisa Cecilia Garcia. William C. Gaskins. Sadie Campbell Gibson. John W. Giglio. Brittany Blanchard Goad. William Pierce Goodbread. Julia Christine Griffiths. David Wesley Griffith III. Melina Ann Page Gunby. Hannah S. Hall. Mary Nicole Hammett. Emily Hanson. Connor Jane Harbin. Marshall W. Harbin. Taryn Harmon Walker. Audrey Elizabeth Harris. William Samuel Hayes. Caitlin Nicole Henderson. James Logan Hoyser. Victoria Taylor Hicks. Ashley Ho. Charles W. Hoffman. Brandon S. Homan. Olivia B. Hunter. Catherine C. Hurley. Harrison Alvarez Ide. Young John. Camille Devon Jones. Joshua D. Jones. Eric J. Jorgensen. Michael Austin Joseph. Zachary D. Kaiser. Hannah G. Kaufman. Ian Laszlo Ketchkesh. Cameron Philip Keene. Caroline Carol Kennedy. Grace Calhoun Curley. Shelley Kana. Frederick J. King.
Jonathan Jacob Kananishu. Leela N. Knox. Sloan S. Carrazas. Grayson Bryce Lambert. Evan Ivy Long. Jacob Alexander Machitar. John N. Mahaffey. Anna Marie Malcolm. Devin Mashman. Sherrod J. McClendon. Jackson A. McDonald. Marcus A. McGinnis. Allison Jane McGregor. Bailey R. Miney. Garrett J. Michael. John G. Miller. Stephen Miller. Alicia M. Millspaw. Chandler R. Mulford. Darshini Nair. Laura Elizabeth Nelson. Sarah A. Nelson. Jackson Richard Knock. Jackson K. O'Brien. Michael R. O'Brien. Anna Elizabeth O'Donnell. Sean B. O'Donovan. Kristen Elizabeth Otter. Adebukola C. Ola. Amelia K. Welch Ortiz. Amelia Cooksey Parker. Jessica S. Parker. Kevin Ray Parker. Caroline Parnass. Anish B. Patel. Hannah L. Patton. Devin Ellen Pulaski. Ralph B. Peeler. Taylor E. Pernini. Zachary David Luis Perry. Connor Drake Peters. Jessica R. Pickens. Elizabeth J. Poland. Miles S. Porter. Mary Beth L. Portier. Melissa P. Pouncey. Peter Nicholas Rafanti. Blake A. Reed. Taylor J. Revenue. Charles Joshua Ruiz. Connor P. Richard.
Hallie Richards. Andrew E. Richardson. Chelsea N. Rearson. Catherine L. Sartain. Jose E. Segura. Jake A. Shapiro. Jason N. Sagalos. Joy A. Seiler. Devin M. Sinclair. Michael A. Sloman. Aubrey M. Smith. Hunter Glenn Smith. Reginald R. Smith, Jr. Spencer H. Smith. Emily Carden Snow. Holly K. Stevens. Mary Carter Stewart. Ryan Christopher Stewart. Matthew W. Struble. Peyton R. Stewart. Christopher P. Summers. Prami Tabassum. Sophia Tager. Eamon Ride Tartier. John D. Taylor. Patrick David Testa. Cullen Barrett Threlkeld. Benjamin A. Tobin. Mikkel F. Tomlinson. John L. Toney. Jonathan Thomas Tortorici. Charles Emery Lawson Turner. Kelsey E. Turner. Abby Jean Tyre. Kristen E. Van Dyke. Zachary Waldrop. Emily Michelle Walker. Michaela Antonia Wandelt. Henri Durrell Washington. Julia Hayden Weaver. Jacob William Weber. Brian Asher Weisgall. Charles D. Wells. Anna Marie Teresa Whittaker. Ansley Shelton Whiten. Ashton T. Williams. Jace D. Williams. Megan Renee Willinger. Constance D. Willis. Jenna Irene Wasicki. Theodore E. Workman III. Farishte Yamin. Loretta Y. Zhao.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you both here, and as you saw in several cases online, the University of Georgia class of 2021. I am so glad that you all are here. We've really missed you over the last 14 months. Okay, Matt, I promised I was going to get through this. When the recessional, I feel like I'm the flight attendant right now. Okay, so when the recessional music begins, Provost 2 is going to lead the platform party over here. Graduates follow the marshals, they're going to recess. Members of the audience, I need to ask you to remain in your seats until your graduates have left, and then you have every opportunity to exit through the exit closest to you, where you can meet them out on the outdoor vista for as many photos as you want to take. And I just got to say it once more, this is the University of Georgia class of 2021.